What's up, everybody? Happy Thursday. Welcome into an all-new episode of the Pack-A-Day Podcast. I'm your host, Andy Herman. You can follow me on Twitter at Andy Herman NFL. You can follow the podcast at Pack-A-Day Podcast. You're the best for joining the Pack-A-Day Podcast every single day. Cannot thank you enough for making this a part of your daily routine. Today is an OTA recap day. It's going to be really fun and exciting to kind of go over some of the things that I had the opportunity to observe at practice on Wednesday. Before we get there, quick shout out to brand new Pack-A-Day Podcast member, Nick McGuire. Nick, thank you so much for signing up. If you're thinking about becoming a member, now, as always, is a great time. We've got new members only episode coming out in the next couple days, maybe today, maybe tomorrow, who knows, but it should be out soon. And then, of course, we've got Q&As every single week, episodes commercial free every single week, first access to videos. There's a ton of stuff out there, so make sure to check that out. Otherwise, always make sure to like, subscribe, comment. Those things go an extremely long way into supporting myself and the channel with very minimal effort. So just click that button, give that 5-star review, whatever you can do. It is super, super helpful. But today is about the OTAs, and today is about specifically day 2 of OTAs that was open to the media. So they've had multiple practices, but there's only one per week during OTAs that are actually open to the media, and this was one of those on Wednesday. So we'll get into everything that I saw, all the key takeaways, the injuries, all of it, Matt LaFleur's press conference after. And I think it's probably most appropriate to start with who wasn't there. And last week, it was only Robert Rochelle, who was out with a personal issue. This week, a little bit different. 3 Packers who were not in attendance: Elgton Jenkins, Preston Smith, and Rashawn Gary. Those were the 3. Robert Rochelle did return, but those were the 3 players that were not in attendance. Not excused, it didn't sound like there was a personal issue, but what Matt LaFleur did say was that he was super appreciative of the open communication between players when they weren't going to miss a practice. And then that may not seem like a lot, but it's just kind of like you're planning out all these practices, who's going to play where, what drills you're going to go through. And if you're expecting to have Rashawn Gary and Preston Smith and Elgton Jenkins practicing and they're not communicative about it, well, that's going to change some things. And it probably is going to be a bit different of a tone and tenor on why those guys weren't there. And if it was, excused or not, you don't have to be excused for these. These are voluntary. If they don't want to go, they don't have to go. But I think that level of communication certainly is going to go a long way with Matt LaFleur. These are 3 veterans, all right? It is always beneficial for as many people to be there as possible. I can guarantee you guys like Brenton Cox and Keyshawn Banks and those sort of guys will get a lot out of Rashawn Gary and Preston Smith being there when they're there. I can guarantee you some of those young offensive linemen would benefit from Elgton Jenkins being there. But Elgton, Rashawn Gary, Preston Smith, this is not going to mean anything as to what, their success for this season. These are veteran, big-time players on this team, and these guys are constantly working at their craft. They are pros. They're going to be working off, doing whatever they're doing on their own time. I have zero concern about that whatsoever. I can promise you we're not going to get to the end of the season and we're not going to be like, well, Packers could have probably won that game if Elgton Jenkins had only showed up to that OTA. It's just not going to happen, right? So no concerns here. Voluntary OTAs, but those were the 3 that were not in attendance. Again, Robert Rochelle did return. We did have some injuries as well. The biggest updated injury here is LVN. And LVN did not practice. He broke his thumb, per Matt LaFleur. Apparently just the tip of his thumb is what was broken. Not exactly sure what that entails, how that works, how you break just a portion of the top piece of your thumb. But apparently that's what he did. I would assume, and I should probably not have to point this out, but I'll say it anyway, I'm not a doctor, all right? So I have no idea. But I would assume that if there was a game this week, that they'd probably cast that thumb up and LVN would go out and play. Thankfully, there's not a game, well, at least from a LVN injury standpoint, there's not a game this week, and it's just OTAs. So they're going to probably be extra cautious and make it that he doesn't, aggravate it, whatever it might be, and he did not practice on this particular OTA. We'll monitor that kind of moving forward. Hopefully it's not anything that kind of keeps him out of training camp practices and things like that, but for OTAs, with the thumb injury, he did not practice. Alex Magoo, also hamstring injury. It seemed like a week ago. We don't have an official designation from him. They're not exactly putting out injury reports, and nobody asked specifically about Alex Magoo in the press conferences. It seemed like maybe there was a hamstring type injury a week ago. but he did not practice again. This is a big factor for a player who is trying to go from quarterback to wide receiver. And it's not like he's 22 years old, right? He's in that, 28, 29-year-old range. I think maybe a little bit younger than that, but he's still a little bit older. And you don't want to miss any time when you're making that transition. So it's definitely something that is not helping Alex Magoo at the moment. Emmanuel Wilson was with the rehab group. No official designation on him. Kitano Ladapo, we knew was going to be out with the foot injury still. That's going to go till training camp. Same with Zach Tom. Same with Tucker Kraft. Both of them have the pec injuries. Neither practiced. It was interesting, though. Tucker Kraft was not dressed in any Packer clothes, meaning his jersey or anything, and did nothing. Arm still in a sling. Zach Tom looked like he actually did some sort of rehab work on the side. Obviously not probably that involved the pec, but maybe just some, agility. Well, who knows? But it did seem like he was a little bit more active and maybe further ahead than Tucker Kraft. Tyler Davis also did not practice, still coming back from that ACL injury. And then the big one, Josh Jacobs. Josh Jacobs did go through stretch like he did a week ago, but then he went out and he did the ball security drills and the individual drills. And then he sort of ramped down for the day, did not do the team drills, and kind of just worked with, the athletic trainers for the majority of the rest of the practice. And then when they got in 11-on-11 walkthroughs that were at like 20% pace, he did go back and participate in those. It was non-contact, again, 20%. You're just kind of going through the motions. He did get a little bit involved with that. But per Matt LaFleur, this is just him ramping up. This is just him sort of going through everything that he needs to go through so he's not aggravating anything and that he can be healthy, I'm sure, for training camp and beyond. But again, I'll say this one more time. I'm not a doctor. He looked fantastic, running off to the side and kind of working out. I would not have any level of concern with Josh Jacobs' injury. This feels extremely precautionary at this point. All right, let's get into some more of the team stuff and some of the observations. Let's start with the offensive line. Your starting offensive line for the day, and remember, Zach Tom has the pec injury, so he did not practice, and Elton Jenkins was not at practice. Those are your two biggest guys that were not there. But what that does allow you to do is kind of mix and match some pieces and get some additional, reps and playing time for some of the other younger players or less experienced players, or just guys that aren't Elton Jenkins and Zach Tom. Your starting five: Rasheed Walker at left tackle, Jordan Morgan at left guard, Myers at center, Sean Ryan at right guard, and Andre Dillard at right tackle. The other side, I don't want to necessarily say the number twos because, for example, Royce Newman was with the ones and rotating in a little bit. He would be a top number two, but he worked still with the ones and was kind of rotating in. But on the other side, when there's this two practices going on at once, the other starting line was Caleb Jones, Donovan Jennings, Jacob Monk, Kadeem Telfort, and Luke Tenuta. Those were the five on the other side. And I was talking to Perry and Maggie. They hosted me on Pax What She Said this week, and they were asking me about it. We kind of got tricked a few years ago with Ray Wilborn. I don't know if any of you remember Ray Wilborn, but he was a linebacker, and during OTAs and mini camps, he was working with the ones. And that was a pretty significant jump for Ray Wilborn. And you were like, oh my goodness, Ray Wilborn's working with the ones. What it seems like they do, and I don't have this from Matt LaFleur himself, but from watching these for a while now, meaning in previous seasons and in this season, it seems like you've got your ones working over here, and then your kind of twos and threes over here, but it's not exactly separated that way. And what I mean by that, take last week, for example. Anthony Johnson Jr. and Xavier McKinney were the two starting safeties with the ones. We basically know that, Javon Bullard and Evan Williams are probably the twos, but they weren't working in with the ones. The player who was working in with the ones was Zane Anderson. And again, I think some people did the Ray Wilborn thing of like, wow, Zane Anderson's working with the ones. When in all actuality, the twos are Javon Bullard and Evan Williams, who are working down on the other side with the twos. And then there's a couple other safeties, Benny Sapp, that are working down on that end. And then they kind of snake it around, and Zane Anderson is now the one that's working with the ones. The truth is, you'd rather be getting a ton of reps with the twos than being sort of the number 3 or 4 guy that's getting very few snaps working with the ones. So in this situation, Royce Newman's getting the opportunity to rotate in with the ones. And there were some other guys too, but that was a legitimate one where he's legitimately working in with the ones over here. And then on the other side was the Caleb Jones, Jennings, Monk, Telfort, and Tenuta. And then some other guys were rotating in over there as well, including Travis Glover, amongst others. So that's kind of how it gets separated sometimes. The other thing I'll note here, from a starting offensive line standpoint, we are in full best five mode. We are in cross-training mode. Guys are playing everywhere. We've had 2 open practices, and Rasheed Walker's primarily been at left tackle, but Jordan Morgan has worked at numerous positions already, left tackle, right tackle. He was at left guard today. Sean Ryan has worked at left guard, center, and right guard. He got some time at center today. We saw Elton Jenkins at center last week. We've seen Royce Newman, left guard, right guard. We've seen a little bit of everything. Andre Dillard has primarily been right tackle. Rasheed has been a lot at left tackle, but there's been a ton of movement. And you can tell that they are, again, cross-training and working to find how do we get our best 5 guys on the field, which has been, not cliche, but it's been said a million times over. But it seems to almost be ramping up even more this year, where they're giving a lot of different guys opportunities to try to play different positions. The one that really is not has been Josh Myers. And we kind of heard this last week. He's going to stay at center. He was at center. In fact, there was a play where Sean Ryan was at center and Jordan Morgan was at left guard. And Jordan Morgan had a false start. And when you have a false start, you get pulled and you got to do push-ups and they put somebody in your place. Morgan gets pulled and Myers comes in. And you would think it was just a one-play thing because you do your push-ups and then you come back for the next play usually. And it's just a one-play thing. And you would think, Josh Myers is coming in. All right, just do this one play at left guard. Nope. He goes to center and moves Sean Ryan over to left guard. Like, he has not worked at guard at all. Josh Myers has been a center through and through at all of these practices. And again, rotating the offensive lineman through has been definitely a key takeaway from these first 2 OTAs. Your overall starters for offense and on defense: Jordan Love at quarterback, A.J. Dillon at running back, Henry Pearson in at fullback. More on that a little bit later. Ben Sims was the first tight end. Let's not get this confused. Like, Tucker Kraft's not practicing, and Luke Musgrave was in with the ones a ton as well. This was more of probably a personnel situation where they went with fullback and their best blocking tight end. So Sims and Pearson were in there because of that. I would not read into, Ben Sims is ahead of Luke Musgrave. No, we don't have to have that conversation. But Ben Sims was the starter in this situation. Romeo Doubs and Christian Watson were the wide receivers. And then, as we talked about, Walker, Morgan, Myers, Ryan, and Dillard were the offensive line. On the defensive line, remember, Preston Smith gone, Rashawn Gary gone, LVN not practicing. Your edge rushers, Kingsley Enagbare and Brenton Cox, with TJ Slayton and Devontae Wyatt on the interior. Kenny Clark, for whatever reason, did not do team activities that I saw. So it was Slayton and Wyatt who got the interior defensive line responsibilities. Quay Walker, Isaiah McDuffie, and Eric Wilson were your 3 linebackers in your 4-3. Eric Stokes and Jair Alexander were the corners. Anthony Johnson Jr. and Xavier McKinney were the safeties. So some noteworthy things here. Anthony Johnson Jr. still first rep up at safety, although we did see Evan Williams and Javon Bullard get some time with the ones. Edgerrin Cooper did also get some time with the ones at the linebacker spot, so he's starting to work his way in. Remember, last week especially, Cooper worked in with the linebackers, but Bullard and Williams were on the other side entirely. So they're starting to work a little bit more with the ones. We saw that at practice on Wednesday. And then Brenton Cox getting that first opportunity with all the other guys out across from Kingsley Enagbare was interesting, as well as was Eric Wilson getting some of those 4-3 reps. So just some kind of interesting things there to kind of keep an eye on. This was, per Matt LaFleur, the very first practice that they have done this offseason that had live activities. And we saw 3 different 2-minute drills that had live action. The 2s versus the 2s, the 1s versus the 1s, and the 3s versus the 3s. And it started with the 2s, and Sean Clifford did okay, had a false start mixed in there. They kind of got down the field, but the defense won that group. Then you had the 1s come in, same thing, couple okay plays, some mishaps here and there, but the defense won that group as well. And then number 3 offense comes on. Michael Pratt takes over, and the first thing I noticed is Michael Pratt's getting his number 3 guys together, and he's getting them fired up before that drill even starts. He's patting guys on the butt and putting his arm around them and just talking to them and just getting them ready to start that 2-minute drill. And that is something that I was impressed by. And it may not sound like much, but just that leadership, that poise, getting everyone together and getting them, hyped up and ready to go. I was impressed by that. And then Pratt comes in, 2-minute drill, and he leads the third team offense right down the field. He was 5 of 9 on the drive. That might not sound great, but here's the other thing you need to know. 5 of 9, one of those was a spike to stop the clock. So really 5 of 8. The 3 incompletions were all drops. Now, one was a little bit of a bullet. Maybe could have put a little bit different pace on it. Maybe it was a tougher catch. Should have been caught. I think there was Dimitri Stanley on that one. And then Joel Wilson had a drop. And then the big one, Michael Pratt had a beautiful ball on a corner route to Malik Heath, of all people. We're not talking about like a bottom tier wide receiver here. We're talking Malik Heath. I know he's still undrafted guy, like 6th on the depth chart right now or whatever, but like still a good player. Beautiful ball, exactly where it needs to be. Not only is it going to be a completion down to the 8-yard line with like 30 seconds left on the clock, but it was also perfect where he was going to easily get his feet in and get out of bounds, and Heath just dropped it. So a lot of drops for Michael Pratt, no fault of his own. He should have been 8 of 8 on that drive. He should have been 8 of 8 had it not been for the 3 drops. And there's things that he clearly needs to improve. There was one particular play where he takes the snap and his feet just die. They're not moving at all. His feet are just stuck in quicksand, and he's going through his reads, and his feet are just static. And I'm sure Tom Clements is along the sideline being like, just, putting his, hand in his, head to his hand and wondering like what the heck is going on. And he knows it's a rookie. It's a rookie that's going through a million different things in his mind on it. So those are things that are going to happen. No harm, no foul on Michael Pratt. Those things will come as time goes on. Well, there's some things to clean up. But the bigger point here is he led the team right down the field, should have had a potential touchdown drive. If nothing else, a big completion down to the 8-yard line to get them for a game-winning field goal. That was big-time stuff from Michael Pratt for his second open practice. I know they've had a few more than that, but it is really the first opportunity. Those are the first live team drills that they have done. It's a 2-minute drill to end practice. The other 2 offenses didn't get anything done. And he had the last opportunity, and he went and made the most of it. His teammates did not help him out. Now, in the last play, after the incompletion to Malik Heath, he did get sacked. Not his fault as well. The offensive lineman got beat clean. He did throw down the field. It was incomplete anyway. But I want to shout out Deslin Alexander. If we're giving the Player of the Day award, it might just be Deslin Alexander. Alexander, key play in that 2-minute drill. It's kind of like the final play, and Alexander beats the offensive lineman clean. I couldn't see who it was. Beats him clean and gets through for the sack, and they called it a sack. I mean, I know Pratt threw it anyway, and it was incomplete, but they called it a sack on the field. That's a big-time play for Alexander. I probably wouldn't have made even that much of it. Maybe we wouldn't have even discussed it that much, except in the number 2s on the other side, he had a clean sack against Caleb Jones as well. And he came immediately, beat him clean, and then had the sack on the play. I can't remember if that was Pratt or Clifford, but either way, he had 2 big-time sacks on the day. Really impressive stuff. They were quick wins. And he was a player, if any of you were listening back when I did, I think I broke down 12 players that you've never heard of on the roster. And I kind of ranked them from who I was most impressed by least impressed by, if you will. He came in at number 5 on my list. I think I had Joel Wilson a little bit higher. I don't know. There's a couple other ones as well, but he was number 5 on my list. He had some impressive plays in college. It was a really fun kind of tape study, but 2 big-time plays. And like I said, if you had to probably give a player the day award, I would probably have to give mine to Deslin Alexander for those 2 big-time sacks. Meanwhile, speaking of pass rushers or edge rushers, an interesting name on edge in this practice, and that was Colby Wooden. Now, a lot of people, a couple months ago were talking about, hey, with a move to 4-3, I could see Colby Wooden moving outside and being a 4-3 end. And I'm like, yeah, I could potentially see that. And then we get to I don't know if it was rookie mini camps or somebody was asking about it or Matt brought it up, but we got told that Colby Wooden put on a bunch of mass and some functional strength and, in that, I think, higher 290s sort of range. So I think myself, at least, I won't speak for anyone else, was like, all right, he's a defensive tackle. No more of that edge talk. But on this particular day, and I asked Matt LaFleur about this after practice, was this just numbers or was this something you think he can do? And he basically said both. Remember, again, Gary, Preston Smith, LVN not practicing. They may have needed some extra guys on the edge, but Colby Wooden gets that opportunity. Thought he looked pretty natural doing it, and we'll see if that's something that maybe they try. I've talked about with Carl Brooks in the past where I thought maybe there could be something there where you play one of these guys, maybe a Colby Wooden or Carl Brooks as a edge player on obvious rundowns. That gives you a little bit more bulk on the outside. You got almost a 300-pound guy that can set that edge. It's not the worst idea in the world. But I thought Wooden did well. We'll see if he gets more of those opportunities when some of those guys get back. I could see him being a player that's active on game day and might just be the fifth edge rusher and the fifth interior defender and could do a little bit of both. I could see him having that sort of role as well. Meanwhile, we got another look at the kicking competition. Greg Joseph did not kick in the open periods for us today. Jack Podlesny did, and it did not go great. He went 3 for 7 per Rob Domofsky. However, Anders Carlson did go 6 for 7, which is still not a perfect day by any means, but his lone miss was from 51 into the wind. So you're willing to give a little bit more forgiveness there. But Carlson, certainly a much better day than Podlesny did. Again, those were per Rob Domofsky. I had a tough angle and trying to figure out if they were makes or misses. So I'll trust Rob on this one, but a much better day for Anders Carlson than certainly for Jack Podlesny. And again, Joseph did not kick. One of the other things that I sort of took away was the safeties. I was watching the safeties closely, and in the team drills, you could tell they were really doing a lot of work to disguise what they were doing. And what we mean by this is, I'm talking about here specifically, is you want to show maybe a too high look to begin with, so that when the quarterback takes the snap, they're thinking, hey, maybe they're going to play too high. But then as soon as the ball is snapped, one of those safeties is crashing down and being that true box safety, and the other one is going as the post safety. But you don't necessarily want any tells there. You could tell they were trying to disguise it. This is what Matt LaFleur was talking about when he wants that versatility. You don't want to have to tip your hand and be like, well, Xavier McKinney's going back there 95% of the time. I can pretty much assume it's going to be Xavier McKinney. They're switching it up. They're disguising it. I thought overall that was sort of a fun thing to watch, and I thought they did a pretty good job of it. Some other miscellaneous notes from practice. Number one, I thought Henry Pearson got a lot of time with the ones. I talked about this a little bit the other day, and the fact that Josh Jacobs did a lot of running behind fullbacks with the Raiders. Could that be something that maybe Green Bay is cognizant of? Maybe. Was it just happenstance? Maybe. But it seems like Henry Pearson is not necessarily forgotten here, and he definitely got a lot of opportunities both in the team drills early as well as some of the walkthroughs as the number one fullback. Dontavian Wicks had a couple plays of note. One, he had a really great catch in team drills. There, he came back to the ball and won a big-time contested catch for a big first down. And then later in the 2-minute drill, had one over the middle. It's a little bit of a tough catch, but Wicks was there. He did a great job getting open, but could not hang on to the ball. I thought Bo Melton had a really nice day. He caught everything his way, even in the individuals and the team drills. I thought overall it was a nice day. He did get caught on an end around that we'll talk about in just a moment, but overall, nice day for Bo Melton. He looks really, really good. I'm not even saying like the big play. I'm just saying you look at him and he looks comfortable, confident, and he looks very much in tune with what Matt LaFleur is trying to have this offense accomplish. Edgerrin Cooper showed a flash of what he's capable of. They blitzed him on a play and they kind of looped him around, and Jordan Love took the pass or took the snap and dropped back to pass, and Edgerrin Cooper was there in a flash. Now, Love threw anyway, complete down the field to Jaden Reed. Nice throw, nice catch. Not sure you would have gotten that off in real time, but we got to see the explosiveness of Edgerrin Cooper and how they can utilize that to their benefit. Brenton Cox, as I mentioned, he got the opportunity to start at end. There's great play where they run an end around to Bo Melton, and Cox stays home and stops Bo Melton behind the line of scrimmage. That's something that even like an LVN last year got caught going upfield a lot. He held his ground, stayed, and then was able to make the play and get a quote unquote tackle for loss on Bo Melton on that end around. Marshawn Lloyd, I thought displayed great quickness on the day. There's just one play where they swing it out to him on an easy swing pass, but as soon as he gets the ball in his hands, he just has that gear, and it's just noticeable right away. He's a fun runner too. You guys are going to really enjoy watching Marshawn Lloyd play football. A.J. Dillon looks like he is in phenomenal shape. You can tell he wants to add a little bit more burst to his game. Now he's bursting with muscles as well. We'll see if that makes him a little bit more dynamic, if he can break some more tackles. It's a big season upcoming for A.J. Dillon, but he does look like he is in phenomenal shape. As I mentioned, Kenny Clark did not do team drills, and I wanted to talk just ever so slightly here about Andre Dillard. Andre Dillard's a really interesting pickup. Now, this is a player who did not work out in Philly at all, had a year in there. It was either year 2 or year 3, where he played some pretty good swing tackle. They tried him at guard, tried him left and right tackle. Nothing really fit. Jordan Mailata, who was a 7th round rugby player in the same draft as him, laps him, and he was a former 1st round pick by Philly. He ends up, kind of falling out of favor in Philly, signs a free agent deal with Tennessee. They give him a big contract, $13 million guaranteed, and he gets benched 3 different times, does not work out in Tennessee, and now comes over to Green Bay. And Green Bay is literally just trying to fill this Josh Nijman role. Can you just be a swing tackle? And if you're the swing tackle, can you make it so that, we don't have to change our offense when you're in? 2 straight practices, and I know it's due to Zach Tom being out, but he gets the nod over Caleb Jones, over Luke Tenuta, over any other offensive tackle, even Jordan Morgan, right? In Morgan, they put at left guard, and they could have put him at right tackle and said, you're going to play there, but no. Andre Dillard gets that opportunity. I think so far he's looked good, and Matt LaFleur was complimentary of him after practice. He's got all the traits. There's a reason why he was a 1st round draft pick. I loved him a lot in that draft. I'll just take the L on that. But overall, I think he's off to a really good start and should have a real opportunity to earn that sort of Josh Nijman swing tackle role this upcoming season. Eric Stokes remained the starter opposite Jair Alexander. I thought we'd see a lot more rotation with Carrington Valentine and Eric Stokes, but so far in 2 practices open to the media, it has been all Eric Stokes as the starter. Thought Grant Dubose had a bit of a tough day. And then Kingsley Enagbare, I thought, had a really nice day. I think he knocked down a pass at the line of scrimmage, but also had a couple pressures and just, like I said, a really nice day for him overall. And just unbelievable still to see him out there practicing after we thought he tore his ACL. He thought he tore his ACL last year, and all of a sudden it wasn't. He's back, and he looks really, really good so far. Jair Alexander and Eric Stokes talked in the media scrum. I was not there, so I'm going off some of the videos and notes from some of the other beat guys. I had to get home after the Matt LaFleur press conference, so I wasn't able to attend the locker room session. But you could just tell in some of the videos that I saw, they're excited about this Jeff Hafley defense. And Stokes talked about it and really was complimentary of Jeff Hafley. Same with Jair. You can tell he's excited about the training staff, about the defense. You could tell, especially with Jair, he was trying to do his best to not throw the old regime under the bus, but you could easily get the vibe of this is different. He feels different. He's more excited. He's bought in. And you just kind of get that vibe from the players overall that they are very, very excited to be playing for Jeff Hafley this upcoming season. Some notes from Matt LaFleur's press conference on Eric Stokes. He said, I think this is as good as I've ever seen him. That'd be amazing. He's a 4.2 guy coming out of college, and he had a really nice rookie season. If he can get back to playing anything like that rookie year, that'd be a huge win for Green Bay. He also was impressed by Rasheed Walker's mindset. He was asked about Jordan Morgan getting selected and coming in and getting some left tackle reps right away. Was Morgan upset? Did he say anything? Nope. Was Walker upset? Did he say anything? Nope. And he just came in and kept working. I think Rasheed Walker has a legitimate chance to earn that left tackle job. We got to see Jordan Morgan today at left guard. I could see that happening. And then I could see Elton Jenkins either being the center or the right guard, dependent upon who's the weakest link. Is it Sean Ryan or is it Josh Myers? And in that case, my guess is Myers wins and Elton Jenkins would go to right guard. But I wouldn't mind that at all. I think there could be a real opportunity that your best 5 is Rasheed Walker, Jordan Morgan, Josh Myers, Elton Jenkins, and Zach Tom. And I really like that Zach Tom, Elton Jenkins pairing on the right side. He also said that he is not in favor of the NFLPA's offseason idea where you push everything back into training camp and don't have those OTAs. He was not a fan, so just to say the least. And then he also was asked about the green dot on the back of the defender's helmet, who's going to be calling the plays. He said they're still working through it, but he kind of guessed that it was going to, not guess, but if he had to say, it was probably going to be Quay Walker. which is not unexpected there. There had been some talk maybe of Xavier McKinney. We talked about that with Perry, a couple weeks ago. But it sounds like Quay Walker is the leader in the clubhouse to be the green dot specialist on defense and the one that is relaying in the calls to the rest of the defense. That's it. That's it for me today. Next OTA will be Tuesday. Of course, we've still got episodes 365 days a year. We're never going to miss anything, but next OTA is Tuesday. I'll break down that practice for you guys on Wednesday. Shout out to our Hall of Fame and All-Pro members, Most Hated Minnesotan, PJ Wynn, John Wild, Chibra Dad, Brandon Paletta, Jennifer Wright, Boom Handle, Donna Lee, Lori Lord, Baby QB, David McCluskey, Donald Decker, Bremen, David Prendergast, Dan Miller, Alex Huang, and Arnaldo Espinoza. I'll see you guys tomorrow, but until next time, and as always, go Pack Go.